Hello and welcome to Chapter Select at the Movies, where we continue to cover The Last of Us, Episode 7, Left Behind, not to be confused with the series of religious books and films. Randy, this was a pretty good one, I would say.
Yeah, it was a good flashback. I mean, obviously, this is the DLC from the video game, so it works really well as a standalone episode, which is kind of what we got in episode 3 with Bill
Mhm.
and Frank, but we actually got this in the video game as well. It's a nice little origin story that's kind of a break from, the craziness. It kind of holds off of what's going to happen with Joel after he got stabbed with a bat. So
Yeah.
one of those side episodes I think I would normally like even more, but when you only have 9 episodes, you're jam
It,
packing so much together.
it's true. It feels like the main arc. I don't know. We'll see. I don't want to call it rushed yet because we don't know yet how the last couple episodes are going to handle things. And knowing HBO, the final episode is going to be like 3 hours long.
Mm-mm.
So I'm sure it'll make up for some of that pacing. But yeah, this one, Joel got stabinated by some random dude at the end of the last episode,
Mm-hmm.
and now we essentially have Ellie coming to terms with what happened and trying to decide whether she's gonna acquiesce to his wish that she should go on without him or
Mm-hmm.
try and save him. And of course, we know what she ends up deciding to do, but that only happens after, a lengthy flashback to her relationship with this girl called Riley, and which also, it fills in quite a bit of backstory that's been hinted at over the course
Mm-hmm.
of the series so far, and really gives us a good view of, who Ellie is away from Joel, or in a more normal life kind. Well, as normal as it gets in the post-apocalypse zombie verse. So
Mm-hmm.
um where to start? So we flash back as she's sitting by Joel's body. We flash back. How many years would you say into the past? 2 or 3 years
For
earlier,
the
maybe.
Ellie,
Hmm.
yeah, it had to have been a year or two, I would think.
Yeah. So she's still at that Fedra complex,
Mm-hmm.
um, but her best friend Riley, who's about her age, has gone away, and it's established that they've known each other for some time, and then Riley, who's always been talking about joining the Fireflies, suddenly disappears for weeks at a time, and Ellie is worried that something's happened to Riley, and suddenly Riley comes back, and she's a Firefly, and she's got a sidearm and all sorts of responsibilities and information that Ellie did not previously have access to. And the two go on a fun adventure to a mall that Riley invites Ellie to kind of show her the wonders of the mall. But
Mm-hmm.
she's got a couple of things in mind. Basically, whatever stuff still works around the mall, that she's sure, anything that's still got electricity. We're gonna get It's gonna get shown off. But what we don't yet realize at this point is that this is, of course, a farewell gesture on Riley's part, because she's gonna get shipped out with some other Fireflies at some point, and she's probably never gonna see Ellie again. So it's one of those things where it's a relationship building story, but we know that this relationship is not long for this world, that it has to end in some way or another, and of course it does, because this is The Last of Us. So we see them visit, first, the escalators still work, and Ellie is over the moon about that. She's so excited about the escalators. uh then we get to see, some of the we get to, like, the comparison of, like, these are the stores that were looted because they had stuff that people needed and wanted, and these are the stores that didn't get looted. Still in amazing condition is the arcade, which is, like, fully lit up and has working systems. So they get to play some. Now, I thought in this version it was actually Mortal Kombat, right? In the game, it's a knockoff Mortal Kombat. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Yeah, yeah, absolutely. The in the game, I always forget what it's called. We looked it up in a previous episode.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I think it's the turning. I think is what the
The
video
turn.
game is called
Not
in
an
the video
amazing
game,
name
which is kind
for
of
a fighter, but yeah.
yeah, it's a Mortal Kombat fighter. They're able to actually use Mortal Kombat 2 here, which is always really cool. I've heard other people laugh about this, but it did make me chuckle that they had to have played for hours because she had a bunch of
Hmm.
quarters, and we kind of flash forward to when all the quarters have been gone. But
Hmm.
they were using fatalities and going all crazy for people that have never played it before. Obviously, it kind of hints at the fact that they know about this game, so they've seen old magazines or old books or old whatever they have found. So maybe they have found old like game pros or
And we know
something
that
that
Riley spent
used to
time
put in
with
all
it,
the
so
tips and tricks, and so they knew all about it before they were able to play it. But it was kind
hmm
of a cool little scene.
yeah. And I think Riley's is teaching Ellie a lot in that, as far as
Hmm.
like how to pull that stuff off. And they've got that moment when Ellie pulls off a fatality, and they kind of look at each other lovingly, and it's as a sweet moment between them. Um, but yeah, so they do activities around the mall. They go to the carousel and ride the horses, and that all still works. And explore the shops. And in one of the shops, Ellie comes across some Firefly weaponry provisions. There's like a storeroom, and she finds like both provisions and also some like explosives there, and that upsets her unduly because she realizes like, hey, this isn't just a place that you pass through. This is like your post, and you really are a Firefly. And
Hmm.
if you came across me not being a Firefly, would you even leave me alive in a combat kind of situation? And that is when they start to have a bit of a schism
Hmm.
between them, where like Ellie's upset and runs off, and then she runs into Riley again at the Halloween store, and Riley is triggered, like a laughing Halloween decoration kind of. It's like a laughing witch or something, and Ellie thinks something's wrong and comes a running. And at that point, then in the Halloween store, as they're
Hmm.
reunited after their little spat, they have the for real conversation, about how well Riley is gonna get shipped off, and this is probably gonna be the last time that they see each other.
Hmm.
And of course, it is the last time, but for reasons other than what has been established, namely that there's a zombie there that
Hmm.
they didn't see in time, surprises them, and it's two little girls against a clicker basically. And
Hmm.
they actually, I mean, Ellie does her usual stabby stabby with her little knife or whatever she's got at this point. But it's not really, and they are able to dispatch him, but both of them get bit, and they
Right.
have that moment when they both realize, like Ellie's like she's got her scar, the now iconic scar that we've seen throughout the whole show.
Hmm.
But then, of course, Riley also has one. She's also bleeding from her arm. So they're both seemingly screwed at this point.
Yeah, and I do have to say I give Bella Ramsey a lot of credit. Her reaction, well, we see the fire that Ellie has throughout this show, but just her over the top reaction to finding out she got bit when she really didn't want to go out in the first place, and now she's gone through all these different emotions throughout this night
Hmm.
about going to lose her friend and then kissing her friend, and okay, maybe my feelings are mutual, and maybe we're going to have a future together, we're going to run off together, and now we're bit, and now we're both screwed. So just the all of those emotions kind of hit her all at once when she's looking at her bite and her trying to wipe it off and stuff.
Hmm.
It's got to be one of those like frantic moments that you're going to have in those situations. So I thought that was very beautifully done. I really like this episode. Again, it's as you've said many times, it's a kind of a bottle episode where we fit everything into this, and for the most part, you know if you've missed this episode, you're not going to miss too much, but that's kind of what happens with a flashback episode. But I thought the character um work that we got between both of these characters work really well. I think it shows more depth with the Ellie character going
Hmm.
forward, and it kind of all works around with her remembering staying there with her friend while her friend lost her mind, and
Hmm.
then that kind of makes her go, you know what, I'm not leaving Joel behind. I'm going to take care of things. I don't want him to turn either, which kind of worked with the last episode where she's like, everyone leaves me or dies, so she's going to do
Right. Yeah.
everything she can to make
Hmm.
sure that Joel does not die. so she's going to stick with him and sew him up as best as she can.
Correct. Yes. And I think it's worth mentioning, just as far as the adaptation goes, that in the video game, this was all, it was very similar narratively, but communicated quite differently because, it was more of a classic environmental storytelling um, type situation, right? Where she's exploring the small after the fact, trying to find medicine for Joel or whatever, and
Yeah,
comes across all these things that remind her.
if I remember right from the DLC, when she's working her way to the small town where she ends up with Joel, where we see at the beginning of this episode, they stop and she puts him in like a small store in the mall because she's looking for supplies to try to find some medicine for him. And then in the game, you have to do some environmental puzzles, and there's some raiders that show up. There's some infected that are there. So just gameplay stuff that you have to deal with. But throughout all of that, as you said, you hit different moments. She remembers something that happened back
Mhm.
during this fun little trip to the mall, and then you go through those 4 or 5 wonders. I do remember in the game, this is like, you have to remember
Mhm.
this is early PS3,
Yeah,
or no, early PS4. Sorry,
sure.
PS3 was the main game, and then Left Behind came out right at that switch point of the end
I
of
think
the
there was
cycle of
still a PS3
PS3 and the
version of it.
beginning of the PS4.
There was a
I
PS3
just
version of it,
remember because
though.
I played it on the PS4, and
Hmm.
it auto sent things to my Facebook that I had linked to my Sony account.
Hmm.
So when they're in the phone booth or the photo booth that you see in the episode, you do that scene in the game, and it sends you your pictures that you take
Oh, that's fun.
from your game to your Facebook.
Hmm. Cool.
That's what I remember from the DLC.
I'm pretty sure. I mean, I'm pretty sure I played it on the PS3, but because I never got that far into the PS4 one, but I remember it being separately available prior to that coming out.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, that's beside the point, though. What the point is that now it's on our TV screens in dramatized
Mm-hmm.
form, and it works very well. It actually, it kind of gives some hint because the later, part two is full of these kind of Joel and Ellie flashbacks.
Mm-hmm.
There's a lot of remembering their earlier relationship in that game, and seeing how this is handled just kind of makes me think like, oh yeah, I can see how they would do. I don't want to spoil particular things, but like, I'll just say NASA. You think of like how, it'd be really cool to see how they are going to take when they apply this approach to some of the stuff that we know is coming in the future. I think it'll
Mm-hmm.
be it'll be really, really good.
Mm-hmm.
So
And
makes me
for the
excited
record,
for season two. For the
yeah,
record.
for the record, Left Behind came out on the PS3 February 14th. Haha, Valentine's Day for this
Hmm.
romantic couple on 2014, and then the PS4 version came out July 29th of that
Yep,
same
yep,
year,
yep. So there were a couple months in between
a
there.
couple months apart.
Okay, my memory is not deceiving me.
Mm-hmm.
Um, but yeah, it's exactly what it's an adaptation of that thing, and a really good
Mm-hmm.
one. And yeah, it's not essential as you say, but it's a really good piece of characterization to me. A more interesting piece of characterization than the last episode, which is also also almost nothing but character building.
Mm-hmm.
But this one I cared about a little bit more, and that's, I don't know why that is. Maybe it's the Joel and Tommy stuff that I didn't respond to as much last time, but it worked really well for me.
Yeah,
To me, this
you have to
was,
give credit obviously to Bella Ramsey and Storm Reed
oh
for
yeah,
doing that. I thought Storm Reed was fantastic as
mm,
Riley in this episode. She did a really, really good job.
yeah,
Kind of
she's
had that
excellent.
attitude. Ellie has that attitude that you see when she's in the school and she's kind of over the top, and then you see Riley, who's even more over the top than Ellie, and you could kind of tell in that clash she was the protector of Ellie,
Mm,
and you see that several times throughout this episode. I just the friendship and relationship that was between Ellie and Riley was very fascinating to me, just to kind of have Ellie was there and she had her protector in Riley, and then the protector left and then came back, and then they both kind of went through their battles of emotion and end up being a very beautiful story with an ending that we all knew was coming because it's been
Hmm.
hinted at for 6 episodes, and we've played the games. But I thought it was very well told, and now we get a setup for the final two.
Yep,
It's
yep.
crazy.
Really, really interested in seeing how they do that last
Mhm.
stretch. So we'll
All right.
see.
Are
The
you
sooner,
excited for these last two? Have you kind of figured out the breakdown of what these final 2 episodes are going to cover?
I mean, I've got a good idea of the final episode. Okay, so there's a huge, huge stretch of game where you're out in the forest and you're fighting these, I don't know, raiders or mercenaries, and Ellie learns how to use a bow, and you have like a whole like almost like original, well, not original, Tomb Raider reboot style bow combat, sections of
Hmm.
this game and all that stuff. uh, there's a lot. I also remember at one point like you have to defend like a villa against a whole bunch of, there's like a tank, and the game is action, action, action at some point.
Hmm.
And apart from the finale where what's her name, Melanie Linsky and her people got super murked by all those infected. Apart from that, there really hasn't been a big action set piece like that since the pilot.
Hmm.
So
Right.
I'm hoping that the next episode will be. I'm hoping that in the next episode that Ellie picks up a bow and
Okay.
bows some people down.
All right. I'm not going to spoil nothing for you. I'm not going to try to give you anything. I've watched them. We're playing catch up because Jens was out of town for a while.
Mm-hmm.
So that's also the fun part of this. We need a rating from you, sir.
8.5.
8.5 is fair. I went 9. So again, you and I have just been right on the money for the most
Oh yeah,
part.
yeah.
You've been just slightly ahead of me. I've been just slightly ahead of you. Overall, I think both of us have. There's not been one episode where we went, that was bad.
No, no, that really hasn't happened.
No. And again, spoilers. I don't think we will be saying that for the next 2 episodes either.
It's a consistently good show.
Yeah, it's very, very good.
Maybe for season 2 we should just like do a big sum up review episode at the end or something, unless you want to continue doing it this way.
I kind of like it doing the episodes, but it does become difficult because we can't uh,
Nah, I
catch
mean
up
this
on things as easier. We can't
normally.
hide the fact that life happens
Mm,
as
no,
easily.
this is an exception. This is not
Hmm.
standard operating procedure. Hopefully, so.
Yeah, so we'll make it work. But
Hmm.
we've got 2 more episodes to go. We're getting caught up very, very quickly. Um, show's been going great, and it's going to finish hopefully on a high note. Keep an eye out on the W2M network stuff to see when our next ones come. Because again, we're playing catch up, so there's no schedule at the moment.
Yep.
It's just we're going to get there when we get there.
Hopefully,
Bear
all
with
this
us. We
week.
appreciate it.
My goal is
Yes,
this
we're going to
week.
do our best. And we're going to
Hmm.
do our best to get it fully caught up and have it all in there when it was supposed to have finished up. But
Right.
until then, that's Jens. I'm Randy. Have a good one.
Cheerio.